It all started on a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind of day I always looked forward to. I had always been close to my son, and for years, visiting him and his wife had been a simple, comforting ritual. I would bring homemade treats, bread, sweets, or the occasional pie I had baked that morning. Sometimes we'd sit in the living room, sipping tea and talking about nothing and everything at the same time. Those moments felt safe, familiar, like home. But that day was different. From the moment I stepped inside, I felt a tension in the air that I couldn't ignore. My daughter-in-law smiled politely, but it was forced, almost mechanical. Her eyes avoided mine, darting away every time I tried to make eye contact. My son, usually warm and welcoming, seemed distant, distracted, and a little uneasy. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just the stress of work, or maybe she was having a bad day. I told myself not to overthink it, yet the feeling gnawed at me. There was something cold in the air, a subtle shift that made the walls of the house feel tighter, heavier. I laughed nervously at my own imagination. "You're just being paranoid," I whispered to myself, trying to shake off the unease. But no matter how hard I tried, the sense of being watched, assessed, refused to leave me. We sat down for tea. I poured a cup for her and my son, trying to start a conversation about mundane things, the weather, work, even a funny story from my neighborhood. She responded politely, but without warmth, her attention constantly flicking toward my son, as if she were planning her next words carefully. Every laugh felt forced, every smile calculated, and my son, the boy I had raised with so much care, seemed unable or unwilling to notice the growing tension. I kept telling myself to stay calm, to focus on making the visit pleasant. I arranged flowers in a vase, prepared little snacks, and tried to bring lightness to the room. But the more I tried, the more the atmosphere tightened. There was an invisible weight pressing down on me, a quiet warning that something was very wrong. As the afternoon dragged on, little things began to unsettle me even more. The way she would glance at the hallway before answering questions, the way she would lean slightly away from me as if keeping a safe distance. Even the soft click of the door opening and closing seemed suspicious now, like a signal I wasn't supposed to hear. And all the while, my son sat quietly, unaware or pretending not to notice that something was off. I didn't know it then, but that day marked the beginning of a nightmare I could never have imagined. By evening, the warmth I had associated with my son's home would vanish completely, replaced with fear, betrayal, and danger. And the people I had trusted most, the very family I had loved, would become the source of my terror. As the evening settled in, I tried to distract myself by helping in the kitchen, arranging snacks and pouring tea. But then I noticed it, an uneasy tension that made my skin crawl. My daughter-in-law and my son were talking in hushed tones, glancing toward the living room where I was sitting. Their voices were low, almost conspiratorial. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe they were just discussing something private. But then, a phrase slipped through the cracks of their conversation. I couldn't believe my ears. Something about her tone, sharp and urgent, made my heart skip a beat. "She can't stay here anymore." I froze. Surely I had misheard. I wanted to shake off the thought, laugh it off, tell myself it was just my imagination. But the words repeated in my mind, echoing like a warning bell. I could feel my pulse racing, my palms starting to sweat. What did she mean? My son didn't seem to notice me, or maybe he didn't want to. I tried to focus on something else, anything else. The sound of the tea kettle, the faint ticking of the wall clock, the warm aroma of the snacks I had prepared. But every time I glanced toward the hallway, I caught snippets of their conversation. Words like plan, night, and won't see it coming danced like shadows, sending chills down my spine. Fear began to creep in, slow and deliberate. Could they really be plotting something against me? The thought was so absurd, so terrifying, that I wanted to laugh just to calm myself, but I couldn't. My instincts screamed that this was real. My son, my own child, seemed oblivious, sipping his tea as if everything was normal. Was he part of it, or was he completely unaware of what was happening right under his roof? I debated confronting them, but the words wouldn't come. How could I ask without revealing that I had overheard? And even if I did, would it matter? My instincts told me that hesitation could cost me dearly. I had to stay calm, keep my wits about me, and wait for the right moment. I excused myself to the bathroom, pretending to freshen up, but inside, my mind raced. Every creak of the floorboard, every whisper, every shadow seemed amplified. I realized I was no longer just a guest in their home. I was a potential target, a pawn in a dangerous game I didn't yet understand. That night, a single thought dominated my mind. I needed to be ready. Something was happening, something sinister, and I couldn't stay blind to it any longer. My survival instincts had awakened, and I knew I couldn't ignore the warning signs. The calm of the day was over, the night was creeping in, and with it a danger that could change my life forever. If you're enjoying this story and touch your heart, please like, share, and subscribe my channel for more emotional stories. By the time dinner was served, I could no longer ignore the gnawing unease that had been growing all evening. My daughter-in-law's polite smiles had taken on a sharpness, a calculated precision that made my stomach churn. My son, usually lively and warm, sat quietly, his eyes distant, as if he were somewhere else entirely. And me, I felt trapped, a spectator in a home that no longer felt like mine. I tried to force a sense of normalcy. I made conversation, asking about my son's work, about mundane things, anything to keep my mind from spiraling into panic. She responded, of course, with short, polite answers, but her tone had an edge I hadn't noticed before. Every laugh seemed rehearsed, every movement intentional. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me was a carefully constructed act, a scene in which I was the only one who didn't know my role. It was then that I began to notice the small, unsettling details I had missed before. A door left slightly ajar, the subtle shift of her body when I entered a room, the quiet glances they exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking. My mind raced. Were these coincidences, or signs of something far more sinister? Panic started to set in, my heart pounded in my chest, my breath quickened, and a sense of dread settled over me like a heavy blanket. I wanted to ask my son if everything was all right, to confront him gently, to figure out what was going on, but something inside me froze. How could I approach a conversation about betrayal without knowing the full truth? What if I was wrong? And yet, the instinct in me screamed that I was not wrong. I replayed the snippets I had overheard earlier in my mind, each word burning brighter with clarity. She can't stay here anymore. Won't see it coming. Plan. My blood ran cold as the realization hit me. The whispers, the tension, the unnatural politeness, it all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Something was being planned, and it involved me. I felt a sharp pang of disbelief. My son, my own child, the boy I had nurtured, could he really be part of this? Or was he simply unaware, manipulated by someone I had trusted? The thought made my stomach twist. Fear and betrayal collided in a storm inside me, making every decision feel impossible. I excused myself from the table under the pretense of checking on something in the kitchen, but in reality, I needed time to think. My mind raced with possibilities. Could I confront them safely? Could I escape unnoticed? Every instinct in my body screamed that I needed to act, and soon, before it was too late. The house that had once felt safe now felt like a trap. Every shadow seemed threatening, every noise amplified. I knew in my heart that the calm I had felt that morning was gone forever. Something sinister was unfolding, and I was caught right in the middle. One thing was certain. I couldn't stay another second without knowing the truth and without preparing for what I might have to do to survive the night. The house grew silent as night fell. My son had retreated to his room, and my daughter-in-law excused herself, claiming she needed to tidy up some things. I tried to focus on a book, pretending to calm my racing thoughts, but my ears were straining, catching every creak, every whisper of movement. Something inside me told me the night was far from ordinary. I went to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, trying to convince myself I was overthinking. And then I heard it. The low, hushed voices coming from the hallway. My heart leapt into my throat and my hands trembled. I froze, holding my breath, listening. "I don't want her here anymore," she whispered. Her voice was sharp, cold, and utterly determined. My pulse raced. I could barely process the words. My son's voice followed, hesitant, questioning. "And what about your father?" She didn't waver. "She'll never see it coming. We'll make sure of that," she said, each word like a blade slicing through the quiet night. I felt my knees weaken. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to disappear, to escape before they realized I was listening. My hands shook as I pressed myself against the wall, trying to stay hidden, trying to make myself small, invisible. But even as I tried to steady my breath, fear wrapped around me like a vice. It hit me then. The truth I had been dreading. This wasn't a misunderstanding, a petty argument, or even a secret about the house. This was a plan against me. And the people I had trusted most, the ones I had loved and cared for, were at the center of it. My son, my own child, either oblivious or complicit, was part of the nightmare I could not escape. I stumbled back quietly, my mind spinning, heart hammering in my chest. How could this be happening? How had everything I believed in, everything I trusted, turned into a trap? Fear surged through me, sharp and electrifying, leaving no room for hesitation. I knew that if I stayed even a moment longer, I could be caught in a danger I could not survive. I returned to my room, trembling, but my mind was already racing. I had to act, and I had to act fast. The quiet of the night now felt suffocating, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a warning. My survival instinct screamed that I needed a plan, an escape plan, before the nightmare moved from whispered threats to reality. One thing was certain. I couldn't trust anyone tonight, and I couldn't wait for morning. The house that once felt warm and familiar had become a cage, and I had only one choice: to get out before it was too late. If you enjoying the story and touch your heart, please like, share, and subscribe my channel for more emotional stories. I retreated to my room, my hands still trembling from what I had overheard. The house felt suffocating now, every creak and whisper magnified by fear. I couldn't stay another second. My instincts screamed at me, leave before it's too late. But I knew I couldn't just run blindly. I needed a plan. I quickly gathered a small bag with essentials, my wallet, my phone, a few personal items, and a change of clothes. Every movement was slow, careful, deliberate. One wrong step could expose me. The shadows in the hallway seemed to shift with every flicker of the dim light, each corner threatening to reveal me. My pulse pounded so loudly I thought they might hear it. I considered my options. The front door was my clearest path, but it was risky. The hallway might creak, a wrong move could alert them. The back door was blocked by boxes and cleaning supplies, remnants of the day's chores, making it difficult to maneuver quietly. Every escape route felt dangerous, yet staying was far worse. My mind raced as I planned my steps. I would move slowly, avoid the creaky boards, and stay close to the walls. I would pause in the shadows, wait for silence, then move again. Adrenaline coursed through my veins, sharpening my senses. Every sound, The ticking of the clock, the distant hum of the refrigerator, even the faint rustle of curtains felt amplified, warning me of the smallest risk. I took a deep breath and reminded myself I had survived worse. I had always been careful, and this time I couldn't allow fear to paralyze me. My safety depended on stealth, speed, and timing. I crept to the door of my room, paused, and listened. All was quiet. I pressed my back against the wall, inching toward the hallway. Each step was calculated, every movement measured. Reaching the hallway, I could see the faint glow of the living room. I had to move past it without being noticed. My daughter-in-law's shadow was nowhere in sight, and my son's door was closed, muffling any noise. I swallowed my fear and pressed forward, silent as a whisper, every nerve on high alert. As I approached the front door, I paused again, heart hammering. One final glance at the home I had loved, the family I had trusted. It felt surreal. The warmth of the past was gone, replaced with cold, sharp fear. I gripped the doorknob, turned it slowly, and the door creaked just enough to make me jump. My chest heaved, but I didn't stop. I stepped outside, and for a brief moment, the cool night air hit my face. The street was quiet, empty, and strangely peaceful compared to the storm I had just escaped. The adrenaline still coursed through me, keeping me alert, my senses sharp. I had made it past the first obstacle, but I knew the danger wasn't over yet. Every instinct screamed at me to keep moving, to put as much distance between me and that house as possible. I didn't look back. My survival depended on keeping my wits, staying calm, and moving forward, one careful step at a time. The night was darker than I expected, a heavy black that seemed to swallow everything around me. The moment I stepped onto the quiet street, the tension in my chest didn't ease. It multiplied. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every rustle of leaves felt like a warning. My pulse was relentless, hammering in my ears as adrenaline surged through my veins. I kept to the edges of the street, moving as quietly as possible. Each step was measured, deliberate, avoiding the cracks in the pavement that could betray me. The house behind me, the home I had once felt safe in, now felt like a trap I had narrowly escaped. I couldn't risk looking back. Every instinct screamed, keep moving, keep running, stay alive. The silence around me was eerie, broken only by the faint hum of a distant street lamp. I could still hear my own heartbeat, deafening in the night. My mind raced with possibilities. What would happen if they realized I was gone? Would they come after me? My legs trembled under the weight of fear, but I forced myself forward, step by step, as though sheer will could carry me to safety. I ducked into the shadows when I saw a light flicker from a nearby window, uncertain who might be inside. My breath came in short, controlled gasps, my hands shaking, but my focus remained razor-sharp. The world felt surreal, silent, empty, and yet full of danger. Each movement could be my last mistake. Finally, I reached the corner of the street, a place that offered some cover. I paused, pressing my back against the wall of a small building, trying to steady my racing heart. I had made it this far, but I knew the risk wasn't over. The fear of being discovered lingered like a shadow that wouldn't leave. I had escaped the house, but the night was still mine to survive. Every instinct told me to go further, to find a safe place before morning. I thought of a small hotel nearby, a place where I could regroup, rest, and plan my next steps. It wasn't home, but it would be safe, for now. I moved again, keeping to the dark, avoiding open streets, taking back alleys when possible. Each step was a battle between fear and determination, panic and survival. When I finally reached the hotel, I booked a room quickly, almost fumbling with my keys as my hands continued to shake. The door closed behind me with a solid click, and for the first time since that horrifying evening, I allowed myself to breathe. My body sagged with relief, my mind still reeling from the night's events. I had escaped the danger that felt so close, so unavoidable. But even as I sat on the bed exhausted, I knew one thing. The night had changed everything. I had learned the hard way that betrayal could come from the places you least expect, and survival sometimes meant fleeing the people you love. And while I was safe for now, the memory of that night and the plan I had narrowly avoided would haunt me for a long time to come. If you're enjoying the story and touch your heart, please like, share, and subscribe my channel for more emotional stories. By the time I finally closed the hotel room door behind me, my legs were trembling, my body drained from the adrenaline that had kept me moving all night. I sank onto the bed, trying to calm my racing heart, but sleep wouldn't come. The memories of the house, the whispers, and the plan I had narrowly avoided played on repeat in my mind. Every creak of the walls, every shadow, every hushed word haunted me. I realized how close I had come to disaster. The very people I had trusted, my son, my daughter-in-law, had been at the center of something that could have destroyed me. I thought about my son, wondering whether he was aware of her intentions or if he had been manipulated. The betrayal stung more than fear ever could. How could someone I had raised, someone I loved, be blind to the danger, or worse, be part of it? Even as the fear slowly faded, relief took its place, mingled with disbelief. I had escaped, and I was alive. But the experience left a lingering ache. The house that had once been a place of warmth and family now seemed like a distant nightmare. My trust had been shaken, and I knew that things would never feel the same again. I began to reflect on the signs I had ignored. The cold smiles, the whispered conversations, the unnatural tension, it had all been there, subtle but unmistakable. I chastised myself for not noticing sooner, yet I also recognize how easy it is to be blinded by love and trust. Sometimes even the people closest to you can hide intentions you would never imagine. As I sat there, I realized something else. My instincts had saved me. The feeling of unease, the whispers in my mind warning me something was wrong, had been my lifeline. Without them, I might not have made it out. It was a stark reminder that intuition is often stronger than logic, especially when danger lurks close to home. I called a trusted friend to let them know where I was, and to make sure someone else knew I was safe. Their voice, calm and reassuring, helped me steady my nerves. We made a plan to ensure I stayed out of harm's way until I could figure out my next steps. The support reminded me that even when betrayal comes from unexpected places, there are still people who genuinely care and can help. Sitting alone in that hotel room, I realized the importance of courage and action. Fear can paralyze, but it can also sharpen the mind, forcing you to make decisions you might otherwise avoid. That night, I had chosen survival over comfort, instinct over denial, and life over fear. I knew that while the danger of that night had passed, the experience would remain with me forever. It was a lesson in vigilance, trust, and the sometimes painful truth that family doesn't always mean safety. And as I lay back against the pillow, I promised myself that I would never ignore the whispers of my instincts again. They had saved me once, and they would guide me in the future. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of my hotel room, gentle but unfamiliar after the terror of the night before. I sat on the edge of the bed, my thoughts heavy with everything that had happened. The fear had not completely left me, but it had been replaced with clarity and determination. I had survived, and now it was time to think about what came next. I realized that sometimes family isn't what you hope it will be. The betrayal I had narrowly escaped taught me a painful but essential truth. Trust must be earned, and instinct must never be ignored. The people I had loved and cared for, the home I had thought of as safe, had almost become my undoing. But I had listened to that small, insistent voice inside me that had warned me something was wrong. It had saved my life. I called a trusted friend to explain the situation fully. Together, we made a plan to ensure my safety, far from the house and the people who had turned against me. It wasn't about revenge or confrontation, it was about survival, protecting myself and reclaiming peace in my life. For the first time in hours, maybe even days, I felt a small measure of relief. I was safe. Sitting in that quiet room, I reflected on the choices I had made. Leaving my son's house had not been easy. The weight of family and love tugged at me. But survival demanded courage. And that night, I had found a strength I didn't know I had. Fear had sharpened my mind, adrenaline had guided my movements, and instinct had pointed the way. Without them, I wouldn't be sitting here, alive and thinking clearly. As the hours passed, I began to think about rebuilding my life. This experience had changed me irrevocably. I knew I could never return to that house, never look at my son or his wife in the same way. But I also knew that I could take this trauma and turn it into strength, using it as a lesson in vigilance, resilience, and self-preservation. I realized that life sometimes forces you to make impossible decisions. Choosing to escape wasn't cowardice, it was wisdom. Choosing to trust my instincts wasn't fear, it was courage. And though the memories of that night would stay with me, they would no longer have the power to control me. I was free. Looking forward, I promised myself two things: never ignore the warnings of my own mind, and never let fear paralyze me again. Life had given me a second chance, and I intended to live it fully, cautiously, but without hesitation. If you enjoying the story and touch your heart, please like, share, and subscribe my channel for more emotional stories.